Welcome to Old Classic Car, and in this compilation we are looking at post-war Austins, original photographs of Austins from the 1940s, the 1950s and the 1960s. And, to begin with, thanks to Trevor for this fantastic photograph, a colour photograph taken in Solihull in the 1960s. We've got an Austin A60 Cambridge in the foreground, and there's an A40 in the Mini as well. And with so many of these photos, it's sometimes just worth pausing the video just to have a look at what's going on in the background, because there's often so much detail to pick up when you actually look properly at these old photographs. Now, we are down in London. There's Buckingham Palace, and the date is 1960, Princess Margaret's wedding. And we have a standard Vanguard pursuing a little Austin A30 saloon there, which is being overtaken by a Mk2 Ford. Yeah, a lot of detail again there. What a fantastic photograph. And look at this here, an Austin Mini Mark 1 Deluxe. What a great little car that is. It's got the little wheel trims and the bumper overriders, which tells us it's a deluxe, and the opening rear side windows. And this one also has a period roof rack for added excitement. Next up in this period photos of old Austins, we've got a BMC service facility somewhere. I'm not quite sure where this is, but if you stop the photos and just have a look at this one, there's all manner of Austins and Morrises and even the odd MG thrown in for good measure. What a great scene that is. I wonder what the car with the biffed in rear boot lid is on the left hand side. What's happened to that Somerset or A70? Okay, thanks to Bob for this photograph, and here is his old Austin A35 four-door saloon. 4075F is the registration number. This was his first car in 1964 that he bought for the princely sum of £60. Next up, what a great old photo this, thanks to Tony for this one, the Austin A90. This is the fixed head version. There was also a drop head coupe version of this amazing car, and one of its identifying features is the rear window that actually winds down. How clever is that? What a great looking car, in two-tone paint job as well, which is unusual. Here's a little Bobby Dazzler. This one is an Austin 8. These were also built prior to World War II, but GOC 538. That is a Birmingham registered car, registered sometime after September of 1946, so just about sneaks in to this post-war Austin car compilation. Lovely looking little car, very, very nice. And KJC 692, that is a Welsh registered Austin A60 Cambridge. Two-tone paint job, but sadly we don't know what colours they were, because this is a black and white photo. But yeah, nice old photo, bit of a drip there under the front perhaps. Maybe the radiator overflow is just putting a bit of coolant out. Oh dear, now you may have seen this photograph in a previous compilation of 1950s motoring photos, but I had to include it here as well. We have an Austin Devon on its side and an A35 or A30 van on its roof. Good heavens above, the location is Leigh-on-Sea, and if you actually look at those road names now, the scene doesn't look all that much different. There's the A40 Devon once it's back on its wheels, and there is the very sad little Austin van. Oh dear, oh dear. I hope the occupants of those cars were okay. The cars don't look too badly crumpled, but I guess it was the end of the road for both of those two. Now, what do we have here? Thanks to Peter for this photo. Peter Ward supplied many photos that have appeared in these compilations, and here we have WRL10. An Austin Westminster A105, two photographs of this car. This one's looking fairly old, quite a bad crease at the back of the front wing there. Dirty chrome, clearly a very used car. There's a rear view of the same machine. That registration is now on a 2004 Lexus, of all things. But back in the day, it was on this fantastic Austin Westminster. That's a fairly hefty looking tow bar on this one as well. Bit of rot at the top of the back wings there. They were very prone to rusting on there. Okay. Another of Trevor's great colour photos here, and we're in Conway in North Wales now. We've got a little Morris there, perhaps a Cowley, pursuing an Austin Mini. A fantastic bus. Do you know what double-decker that is? I'm sure someone will recognise that. And another varied mix of classic cars driving away into the distance. And how about this? A nice colour shot here of an Austin. Is this a 1300? I'm guessing it's probably an 1100, a little bit earlier, but it's got a crinkly grille, so that tells us it's definitely an Austin. There's also the Morris version as well, which is very, very similar indeed. Now, this photograph is one of several that turned up of cycle racing back in the 1950s or 1960s, and but of interest to me in particular is that A40 van in the background there. How cool is that? That's a fairly early one. with the removable wheel spats over the back wheels. Later vans would have fixed rear arches. This is a great old photo here. We've got a few different vehicles here. There's a Ford Model CX on the left and another Austin 8 GYB 905. That's a Somerset registered car, registered in 1945, so during the tail end of the war. And the vans are Trojans. What a great scene that is. Oh, we're over in New Zealand now, another of Peter Ward's photos, and a very original looking Austin A40 Devon, exhibiting the classic door handle droop, which is so familiar to many Austin owners. But yeah, that one looked very, very nice indeed. This was in the 1970s, I think it was. Is it still on the road, I wonder? Now, several photographs of a really interesting little Mark 1 Austin Mini. Have a look at those headlamp rims, very, very deep rims indeed, possibly ex-Riley 1.5, and that is something that Wooden Picket featured on many of their converted Minis in the 1960s, those much deeper headlamp surrounds. Now whether this is a Wooden Picket car or not, I'm not quite sure, possibly not, but maybe someone has just modified their car to look a bit more like the Wooden Picket cars. And here's a side-on view of the Mini Deluxe, very, very nice, and a very long radio aerial on the front wing there, good heavens. Oh, thanks to Melvin for this one, and a great photo there of a young lad, I assume that's Melvin, and a 1967 Austin A40 Farina Mark II, and like the Mini we saw before, with period roof rack no less. Great option to have on your old Austin there. This would have the 1098cc engine. Okay, PGC 306, an Austin A40 van, that's a London registered van, circa 1954. And this has the latest style of rear wheel arches that I was talking about before. The early vans had removable spats over the back wheels, and these have more open rear arches and were fixed, not removable. Thanks to Steve for this photo. Steve's provided quite a few photos that have appeared in these compilations, and we have two Austin A40 Farinas. In the foreground, a Mark II, quite an early Mark II saying that, and a Mark I behind that. The early Mark IIs had the 948cc engine just like the Mark I that you can see behind it. Later cars 1098. Okay, Nev in Australia sent this photo and several others over. This is a wonderful thing. This is an Austin A90 Westminster. Quite a rare car, the 6-cylinder version of the Austin Cambridge, slightly longer front, but otherwise very similar looking really to the 4-cylinder Cambridges. There's another view of the same A90. You can see the New South Wales registration plate on the front of this particular car. If Nev's watching, if you've got any more notes you can add about this particular car that you owned back in the day, please pop a note into the comments. Equally, if anyone else has owned any of these cars back in the day, or even now, perhaps tucked away in your garage, please pop a note in the comments. Now, thanks to Keith for this particular photo. This is fantastic. This is an Austin Gipsy. This was BMC's answer in many ways to the good old Land Rover. This is a Birmingham registered vehicle from about 1959. And who made that roller? Does anyone recognise the make of that road roller? There's another view of the same vehicle. There's another roller perhaps in the left hand side, just in the undergrowth there. What a great looking vehicle that is. But unlike the Land Rover, all the outer panels on the Gipsy were made of steel, which led them to start rusting away very, very young ages, which is a bit of a shame. It makes them quite rare now. Thanks again to Trevor, and a lovely scene here with his dinky little Austin A30. This was the predecessor of the A35. This had the 803cc engine, exactly the same size coincidentally as the standard 8 engine. Different engines altogether, but same capacities. And here's an old photo from my collection, KOL 708. That one's no longer registered, sadly. I'm guessing this photo was taken about, 1970, 1969, something like that. And behind it is that an A70 Hampshire, the classic Austin of the 1950s. Got quite a few interesting old cars there. We're in South Africa for this particular photo. 1950s is the date, and we have an Austin A40 Somerset being driven quite vigorously on part of some auto test or road rally of some kind, perhaps a club road rally. But yeah, it's leaning at very interesting angles. They were quite roly-poly, these cars. Now back to BMC and one of their service facilities. And this could well be Longbridge, because that looks like a brand new Austin A55 Cambridge Mark II, circa 1959, 1960, somewhere around about there. You can see the bumpers are still covered up for protection. There's a chap there working under the bonnet. And here we have KFB 464. First of 3 photographs to feature this particular classic Austin. It's a Very smart looking little car. This is the Austin A40 Cambridge. Very, very nice looking little car as well. The B series engine, 1500cc I think it was by this point in time. And there's a gentleman in his shorts giving his prized Austin a good clean. I've got a feeling we are also in South Africa, possibly. Maybe someone recognises the style of registration plate on this particular car. It looks very much like a British reg plate, if I'm honest, but I'm pretty sure, looking at the scenery in the background, we are not in Britain. And there's a low-down interior view of that same Austin Cambridge. Very simple design, quite elegant, and nice looking little car, that is. Next up in this old classic car Austin Photos collection, we have the Horopito Motors Yard in New Zealand in the 1970s. Thanks to Peter Ward again for this photo. There is a separate video all about this particular famous scrapyard in New Zealand. And what do we have here? An Austin A70 Hampshire, no less, complete with period sun visor with a very dented roof, a big puddle there. And Melvin once again provides a fantastic Austin photograph, and here we have an Austin A30 van with added windows. And that's Melvin's grandfather looking under the bonnet of Melvin's father's car. Hope I've got that right, Mel. But yeah, very, very neat little vehicle indeed, 803cc. Now, this photo was taken during a traffic survey in London in 1954. And on the right-hand side there, we've got a very rare drop-head coupe version of the Austin A40 Somerset. That's something of a rarity now. And we've got some very interesting cars going further away into the distance down this particular road. Now, next up, a Jersey registered Austin A40 Devon. And that's quite unusual because it's a very early A40 Devon. You'll note the headlights are smaller diameter compared to other A40 Devons that feature in this particular upload. So keep an eye out for that. I think these are 5" in diameter, whereas later Devons had the 7" Lucas units. Okay, back to Trevor again. And a lovely photograph here. It's a scan of an old slide, rather, featuring an early Austin 1800, the good old Land Crab Saloon. Another of Alec Isigonis' designs. Of course, he was responsible for the Mini, the BMC 1100, and the Morris Minor. Okay, next up, 6646UB is the registration number and the car. There's another example of the Austin A55 Cambridge Mark II. That's a Leeds registered car from late 1959. This would have had the 1489 B-Series engine under its bonnet, which was expanded to 1622 when the later A60 Cambridge came along, with its slightly smaller fins, slightly wider rear track, and a few other detail differences. Very different grille on the front as well. But this is the earlier big finned car. A great looking thing, that is. We used to run a black one of those a few years ago. Got more of Tony's great photos here. And the car, of course, is another Austin Mini Deluxe. This on a D plate, so that dates this one to 1966 on the left, with a in-period road roller. Quite an interesting looking heavy vehicle. This was on or around the A49, I believe, on the particular road. Okay, another of Peter's amazing photographs here, and another lovely Austin Westminster. There's a rear three-quarter view of the same Austin Westminster. Now, is this an A95 Westminster or the A105? I'm not quite sure. Both of them are 6-cylinder cars and visually look very, very similar to each other. So if you know which one this is, please pop a note into the comments and let me know. Okay, another slide scan from my own collection here. I'm not quite sure where we are for this particular photograph. The A40 Farina ENP is the registration. That's a Worcestershire registration, which was introduced in June of 1961. So perhaps we're in Worcester with this particular colour scene. I'm not quite sure, but we've got a Morris van behind and a Bedford CA. Okay, KLO 566 is the next car here. I did look this one up, but it's no longer registered, so no longer around. This is the Austin 16. These were built from 45 to 49. And like the V8 Pilot, very much a pre-war looking car, but built in the post-war years. Very handsome machine. And another Austin A40, being given a bit of welly here. This particular Somerset, complete with radiator blind, you will spot. So this must have been a wintry scene on some unidentified runway somewhere by the look of it. Bit of an auto test going on, and some heavy braking and steering taking part there. But yeah, very interesting scenes. And how about this? Looks like in this A40, this Mark II Austin A40 has been taken on a continental road trip with the Alps in the background. And what a lovely colour scene that is. Okay, more Austin goodness here, and this is the Austin A30 Saloon. The gentleman in the passenger seat looks a bit like the granddad out of the Steptoe TV series, but I'm sure it probably isn't. But yeah, we've got an AA badge on the front there and something else, another badge on the right hand side. I'm not quite sure what that is for, but where is the location, I wonder? Another old period slide scan here. We've got a young lady posed with another Austin A60 Cambridge, and in the background you can just make out an A40 Saloon in grey with white roof. Very, very nice too. Is that a Singer Vogue on the right hand side there, or the Humber Sceptre? I'm not quite sure which. Right, another young lady here posed with their prized Austin. This is the Austin 1100, and where are we for this particular shot? No notes sadly accompany this particular photograph, and they've got a Rover. There's a P5 Saloon in the background as well. Very, very nice indeed. And there's a chap out doing a bit of shooting some peasants, and we have an Austin A40 Countryman. This was the estate car version of the A40 van, and again this is a fairly late example with the fixed rear arches. And while we're at the rear arches, you can see some very chunky looking town and country tyres on the back of this particular example. Someone's wedding day, and we have RNN 758F, and the wedding car of choice for this lucky couple is an Austin Champ, an ex-military Austin Champ. I looked this one up as well, but this one doesn't show as being registered either, so sadly I don't think this car is around anymore. What a great scene here. Various cars in view, but on the left hand side, parked up, we have an Austin A55 Cambridge, the Mark I as it would become to be known, Mark I Austin A55 Cambridge, ULX 689. We've got a bit of a test going on here. There's a, what have we got here? Mark II A55 Cambridge being used to test the properties of a prototype street lamp by the look of it. So yeah, that's quite an interesting scene. Where was this? Perhaps at Myra, the research centre? Who knows? Anyway, JCV82, back to earlier Austins. This is an Austin 10, very similar to the Austin 8, but the 10 has this split rear window, which you can just see, a two-piece rear window, whereas the Austin 8 has a smaller one-piece rear screen. So there aren't too many differences, but there are a few differences between the 8 and the 2 when you look closely. And there is the Austin 10 on the left there, rear view of it, the boot lid open and a spare tyre leaning against the open boot lid. So perhaps there's a wheel change going on. Two people there, and they're stood on what is perhaps the wheel and tyre that have been removed from the car. They're standing on it perhaps to break the bead before removing the tyre. Okay, 141 WMT. That's a London registered Austin A40 Farina Mark I Saloon of late 1959. We've got a motorcycle and sidecar combo in front of the A40, and there's an old Wolseley there over the other side of the road. Is that a 450 or a 680? Anyway, we're back to Horopito Motors in New Zealand, another Peter's great photographs, and another Austin A40 Devon, again with slightly droopy door handles, and what looks like perhaps a homemade sun visor over the front screen. I wonder if that's still there. The scrapyard is very much still around, still packed with ancient cars. And here, another BMC facility. I'm not quite sure where this one is. There are no notes with this old photograph, but you can see a couple of Austins peering out of the windows on the left there. We've got a Gipsy and an A30 or an A35 probably, given that you can see flashing indicators below the headlamps. But yeah, what a great old photo that is. And here's another photo of the same building, but from the other end. You can see large BMC and Nuffield signs, and another Austin Westminster there, parked with what appears to be a Standard 8 and a Frog Eye Sprite and a Ford 300E van and a Morris Minor. So quite a variety of cars there. Now look at this. Is this finished in silver? Certainly almost looks like a metallic kind of colour. The registration is FDL something something something. So it's Austin 8. That's an Isle of Wight registration from mid 1947. So just about sneaked into this post-war Austin collection. What a great looking car that is. Ooh, we've got a bit of a mixed bag of slightly time-worn looking cars here. We've got the Morris van on the left and the Mark I Cortina on the right. MG 1100 in the background, and in the middle, NHM 455, a very sad looking Austin Cambridge, all of them for sale it would seem. Wonder if they found new buyers. Okay, DNG 839C now. Got a few photographs of this little beauty. This is an Austin Cooper Mini from 1965, and again it's got those deep headlamp surrounds on it, X Riley 1.5. So is this a wooden picket modified car, or is it a regular Mini that someone's just improved a little bit? There's a gentleman and a lady posed with the same car. Yeah, and a few other classics there, including a C-Reg, so 1965, Austin Cambridge, just on the left there. There's an Anglia with an L plate, and an Austin Mini as well. Motorcycle and sidecar combo, and so on. Great stuff. And there's another photo of the same classic Mini. Great looking little car, that is. And on the right, we have a Bedford Dormobile, a Bedford CA based camper van. Perfect for a week away somewhere in the hills. There's the same Mini, very fruity looking Mini, but what is this single seater on the left hand side there? If you recognise what that is, please let me know in the comments. Looks like it's got one of those sort of differentials that you can swap out quite quickly and easily there, hung out the back. So it's, yeah, a serious bit of kit, but what is it? Okay, we're back to London, thanks to Peter again for this photo. We've got a 1965 Austin A60 Countryman, the estate version of the Austin Cambridge. What a great looking car that is. I'd very much welcome one of those here in the OCC fleet one day. That would be a very, very useful vehicle indeed. And these drive quite well, really. And here's the predecessor to the A60, the A55 Cambridge Mark II. This one with an ARY registration number, and it appears to be somebody's wedding in the 1960s. But where this was, I'm not quite sure. There is a sign just outside on the outside of the building there, so perhaps that will identify the location. Another roadside picnic. It's a while since I've seen one of these in one of the collections. Got a lovely little Austin A40 Farina Mark I there, a deluxe with the opening rear side windows. The base model just had non-opening rear side windows, and it didn't have bumper overriders either. But yeah, great scenes. Another little Austin here. This looks like another Austin 10, the GS1 series, a four-door saloon built either side of the Second World War, but I think this is a post-war car. Another lovely colour slide here that I scanned, and a head-on view of ULF 148. We'll see another photo of this a little bit later. That's a London registered car. That series was introduced in August of 1957, so that pretty much dates this particular car. We've got a couple more gems on the left and further away as well, so yeah, great scenes. How about this, another colour slide scan, MDJ 698, another example of a late Mark I Austin A40 in black, which is quite an unusual colour scheme for one of these. You don't always see them in black. Greys, horizon blue and so on, but not so often in black, so that's quite a nice picture. We're back in New Zealand for this one, and it looks like this A40 Devon is a bit of a work in progress. Bits of red primer splattered here, there and everywhere, and very droopy door handles, so this one's clearly seen a bit of use, but I wonder if it went on to be restored or whether it just met its days, perhaps the end of its days in the Horopito yard, who knows. Okay, GGU 488, a lovely Austin 8 here. This one is actually slightly earlier than our date. That registration series came out at the end of 1940, so it's quite unusual in that it was a new car registered during the Second World War, and that didn't happen very often at all because most production was turned over to military vehicles. Back in New Zealand, and we have the little Austin A30 here, the little A03 powered car. Very nice too. This is the two-door saloon version. Here's an RAC, presumably an RAC rider or a van driver, who knows, one of the recovery chaps, posed alongside an Austin A70 Hereford, which is sporting an AA and RAC badges on the front of it, the registration JOR 222. I wonder where this was. I wonder why he's posed alongside it. Okay, slightly newer now, mid-1960s, 1965, Austin A60 Cambridge. What a great old car. These were everywhere at one time. I'm sure many of you watching this video will have memories of Austin A60 Cambridges. They were everywhere, the saloons and the estates. Yeah, but now Sadly, not so much. Another slide that I scanned recently, KWJ 740. Another Austin 16. That's a Sheffield registered car, mid 1948. I wonder if this is in Sheffield or somewhere around there. Behind it, we've got another 300E Ford Thames van and a little Ford Pop in the background as well. Okay, two classic Austins in this one. We've got 746 AKT and A55 Cambridge Mark 1 and a little minivan behind that. How cool is that? It's an early one with a little vent flap in the roof. You can just about make it out. So, of course, that's a Morris Minor part behind as well. But yeah, fantastic scenes. Now, thanks to Robert for this. What a great picture this is. Apparently his father was well into photography, and every now and again their local photo club would get models to come along and pose for photographs. And here there's a young lady posed on the bonnet of a Mark 1 Austin Mini. What a great scene that is. I wonder where she is now. I wonder where the car is now, more importantly. Okay, NGT 440. Family posed with their lovely black Austin A40 Somerset. Fantastic. What's that car on the left in the background? Is that a Vauxhall 10? I'm guessing it looks a bit like one. CPA 563B, another example of the Mark II Austin A40 Farina, again with a period roof rack on the top. Perhaps they couldn't actually carry too much in these particular cars, because lots of these A40 seem to have roof racks on them. It's got a pair of No-Tech blue spot lamps on the front as well, and an AA badge. Now, first the three photographs showing the sad demise of a classic 1950s Austin. Here is the evidence on the road for all to see. I wonder if the bicyclist was involved in this or if he just came along later. But yeah, much damage to the hedge, but I wonder what's happened. What has gone on here? Well, the next photo will reveal all. Oh dear, a somewhat mangled looking Austin A30. This one has met the end of the road, but quite what happened there? Why did it veer off the road and end up in the field on its side? It's clearly looking a bit battered. I wonder if it's been over more than once. Doors off and boot lid open, bonnet. Oof, dear. There it is, back on its wheels. But yeah, I think that one was not for the road anymore. Clearly these chaps have got it back on its wheels, but I wonder what the story is with that particular car. I guess we'll never know, sadly, but hopefully the driver was okay. Oh, a lovely Austin Westminster here, another example of the big six-cylinder Austin. What a great looking car that is. Another one of Peter's fantastic pictures here from New Zealand. What a Bobby Dazzle that is. Really smooth drive, I would have thought, that particular car. Of course, the engine went on to be used in the Austin Healey sports cars as well. HGU 531 now. Lovely London registered, circa 1946 Austin saloon there. Looks like an Austin 10 going off those larger headlamps. I did look this one up and it's no longer registered, sadly. So I'm guessing this car is no longer around. But yeah, nice to see it here. I wonder what the reason for the photograph was. We're back in New Zealand here. Another example of a very original looking Austin A40 Devon. Not too much door handle droop on this particular car either, which is quite unusual. I'm guessing this one dates to about 1949 or 1950 thereabouts. And here's a young chap and his mum, and another lad just in the background there, posed with perhaps their new house maybe, and their probably brand new Austin A55 Cambridge Mark II. Very, very nice car, built from 59 to 1961, before the A60 came along to replace it. We have another A40 Devon here, quite a time-worn looking example, pretty grubby, pretty faded. ZE, so we've got an Irish registered car there, and a few other interesting classic cars in the background as well. So yeah, great scenes. There's the little Austin Cambridge just behind the Devon as well. I can just see it there, parked next to the curb. Okay, JCO121. This is a very early Austin A30. This is the AS3 series Austin A30. Note the fuel filler cap on the rear wing there, just below the roof. Because on most A30s, you'll see the rear fuel filler cap is on the back panel next to the number plate. So that location there tells us that's a very early A30. And here we have a mid-1960s, 1966 Austin Mini Estate, and how cool is that? That's identical to the car that I learnt to drive on back in the mid to late 1980s. Mum had a car very similar to that in tartan red. And look, again, period roof rack. Back in New Zealand, and another Austin Cambridge, either an A40 or an A50. Yeah, interesting choice of two-tone colour scheme on this particular car. I don't think that was a factory paint job, so someone's been a bit creative with their pot of brown paint. Oh yeah, still on the road in the 1970s, so that was good to see. But is it still around? Another lovely old black and white photo now of another Austin A40 Devon. No door handle droop evidence, so perhaps the car was quite new at the time of this photo. And this one has the optional sliding steel sunroof as well, which is not something you see on a lot of these A40s. I don't know how many were produced with sunroofs, but probably not so many. Okay, another Austin A40. We've had the Devons, and here another A40 Farina. This is the Mk2 Austin A40 Farina. Slightly longer wheelbase compared to the Mark 1, but the same overall length pretty much of the car, but they just move the rear axle rearwards a little bit. A bit of everything here, quite a gaggle of vehicles there. We've got HYD 893, it's a Somerset registered car, circa 1947, the Austin 16. There's a pre-war Austin to the right as we look at it. A lovely little Sunbeam Talbot, or a Talbot, maybe a 10 horsepower drop head coupe, and many other cars in the background. Now, MFM 175, another example of the fairly early Austin A40 Countryman, the Devon era A40, and again with the larger removable rear wheel spats as well. So that's quite an early car, about 1950 or thereabouts, I would have thought. And another BMC building here. I'm not quite sure where this is, but we just seem to have a gaggle of randomly parked vehicles. A big old Austin limo on the left there, and an Austin Healey looking part dismantled. A35, another Austin in the middle there with its bonnet raised, and a Cambridge and a Devon, all sorts there. And spotted in the 1970s by Peter in the Horripito Motors yard was this rarity, a ute or utility vehicle based on the Austin A99 Westminster. What a rarity that is. Was that a factory produced thing over in Australia? I know they did do some ute versions of the mainstream Austin saloons, so a nice thing. Okay, and we are at Cheddar Gorge for this scene here, and there's PXJ, which is an A40 or an A50 Cambridge. And there's a little A30 just to the left there next to the Ford 100E and the Armstrong Siddeley. Bit of everything. We've got a Ford Anglia 105E as well with roof rack, and all sorts of cars going further away. And here's the second photo of ULF 148, another colour scheme. We saw the head-on view a few moments ago, and here's a rear three-quarter view, and it's got one of those sort of bolt-on extractor things on the end of the exhaust pipe, which was meant to give you a bit of added performance, but whether they did or not, I very much doubt it. Yeah, nice period accessory, and what a great thing this is. A fantastic Penners Limited ice cream van based on the A40 commercial chassis, the half-ton A40 van chassis. What a great looking vehicle that is. What a shame it's not in colour, this photograph. Absolutely stunning vehicle. Next up, a gent and JWS 967. That's an Edinburgh registered A40 Somerset, circa May, June 1952. Nice one. And that took the running gear pretty much of the previous A40 Devon, although the Somerset had column gear change. And back to later A40s and a side view of a Mk2 A40 here, with again a roof rack. Did every A40 have a roof rack? It seems that way, judging by all these old photographs in this particular compilation. But yeah, great stuff. I must dig out a roof rack to fit on ours one day. Okay, next up, this is outside Rush Green Motors, a very famous scrapyard. Many cars were just dumped outside back in the early 1960s, and on the back of the lorry there, we've got another Austin 8. Now we are in North Wales, thanks to Trevor for this one, and that is the Tinnygroes Inn in Dolgethley. And another example of the comparatively rare A40 drop-head coupe, the drop-head version of the Austin A40 Somerset. And in front of that, a Hillman Minx. But yeah, that Austin is a proper rarity. Now, Steve sent this and a couple more photos over. Here we've got VOY 889G. This is his 1969 Austin Mini Cooper. How cool is that? What a fantastic looking vehicle that. I think it was new when this particular photograph was taken. How nice is that? There's another view of the slightly modified car, the same car on the left, and its replacement on the day that the registration number was swapped over to the new car. The car on the right is a slightly later, it's a 1971 Cooper S, a 1275cc powered Mini. So that was a bit of an upgrade, I suppose, compared to the earlier car, but both very sought after now. And we are out camping. An interesting looking caravan. Does anyone know who made that particular caravan? The car Jam 605. What a great registration on that Austin Somerset there. But yeah, great holidaying scene in the 1950s. I wonder if the Somerset towed that caravan or whether it was just parked up and they just drove there themselves. Now this is a bit of a blurry photo, but the car is so rare I had to feature it here. This is the two-door Austin A40 Dorset. This is a two-door equivalent of the Devon, and these were only built from 1947 to 1949. Just under 16,000 were built, and nowadays they are very, very thin on the ground. Another A40 Mark 1 here. There's a chap with a very smart hat, I like that. And the car, what colour is that then? Is that maybe Farina grey with a black roof? Typically the A40s did have a contrasting colour roof unless you specified that you wanted it all over the same colour, which was the case with our Mark 1. Okay, thanks to Trevor, and here, first of two photos of an Austin A70, the Hereford. Very similar looking to the Somerset, but the Hereford had the chrome boot-lid hinges that you can see there, and a slightly wider body and slightly wider rear window. If you park the Austin Somerset and the A70 next to each other, you would see the differences, but without the other car to compare with, it's quite easy to mistake this for the A40 Somerset, but this is definitely the A70. What a great location, great scene for a photograph back in the, presumably the early 1960s I think this would have been taken, but if Trevor can add any more details, please pop a note in the comments, it's always good to see them. Now we're back to that London street survey in 1954, and quite a gaggle of cars, and two more examples of the Austin A70 Hereford parked on the left hand side there. Interesting stuff, and yeah, again you can see those chrome boot-lid hinges which marks them out from the A40 Somerset. Now I'm guessing this was probably holiday making somewhere or other. That looks like maybe a holiday cottage, but interestingly that van is pretty rare. Now that is an Austin A10 van. It could be pre-war, or more likely this is a post-war example, and you can see the removable rear wheel spats that were a feature of the later A40. Okay, now we have a left-hand drive export spec A40 Farina Mark II. I haven't done the translation of the German presumably writing on the building in the background, so if anyone's willing to do that and tell us what that building is for in the background, please pop a note in the comments as well. Okay, NOY 391, another example of the A40 or the A50 Cambridge. The A40 was 1200cc and the A50 Cambridge was 1500cc, if I remember correct. What a great scene this is. 6881YG, a very early A35 van. You can tell it's an A35 because you've got the painted grille, but you can tell it's also an early one because it hasn't yet got the flashing indicators. It's still got semaphore pop-up indicators behind the doors, and this appears to be at a toll gate somewhere, but where this is, I'm not quite sure. And same goes for this SVB 508, an Austin A55 Cambridge Mark 1. And there's a PA series Vauxhall in the background. That's quite an early PA with a three-piece rear window arrangement. Later cars would have a wrap-around rear window, a one-piece rear window, whereas in the early cars it was a three-piecer. Thanks to Mike for this great photograph. Now I think this probably dates to the 1970s, judging by the little Renault on the side there. And this is his A40 Somerset. What a smart looking car that is. I wonder if that one's still around. It looks like it's been fitted with flashing indicators to supplement the old pop-up semaphores, and in fact the semaphores have been replaced by flashing indicators as well. Okay, next up, EBF 40. Very, very nice Staffordshire registered, late 60 or early 1961, Mark 1 Mini. Looked that one up as well, and that registration is now on a 2022 Mercedes of all things. So the registration continues, but sadly the car probably doesn't. And we're back to A40s, very level door handles on this particular A40 Devon, and clearly we are 56 kilometres away from Hanover in this particular scene, so a bit of a continental road trip in this lovely example, presumably in black, of an A40 Devon, very similar to the 1940 A40 Devon that we had years ago. Okay, ROH 929 is the next one. That's a Birmingham registered Austin Cambridge from about March or April 1955. Don't forget to have a look around the rest of the channel. Other uploads like this containing period original photographs. Here we've got an A40 Mark 1 being water tested at some BMC service facility. I'm not quite sure where this is. XGW 310's the registration. It's not a brand new car, so why it would be water tested, but not a brand new car or a test car. I'm not quite sure why that would be. Answers on the postcard, please. Okay, thanks to Keith for this one. This was a photo of his girlfriend of the time, and their somewhat modified little Austin Mini, although this Mini wasn't to last much longer. Apparently it went for scrap just a few weeks after this particular photograph was taken, so I can say with a lot of confidence that this Mini is not still around. Note the Castrol GTX sticker in the window. Oh dear, this little Austin has met with a sticky end. I don't quite know what happened here, but clearly the Austin has had a fairly serious impact with something more solid than it. Not quite sure what's going on there, but yeah. Go safely out there, folks, in your old cars. Okay, thanks to Robert now for these two snapshots. There is Robert on the left there with the family's Austin A30 Cap 64, and on the right hand side one of its later replacements, a Mk2 Austin A40 Farina. Again, two-tone paint scheme. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like this kind of thing. Let me know in the comments if you do. Thanks to Nev now, another photo from Australia, and a slightly tired looking A40 pickup. Well, what a great vehicle that is. I hope that one was rescued, because those are lovely looking little trucks they are. I do like those a lot. And here we have, it would appear to be some sort of shunter removing a couple of railway carriages out of a ferry. Now, where would this be? The car is an A40 or an A50 Cambridge, again with roof rack. Perhaps these BMC cars had very small boots, because many of them seem to have roof racks. Yeah, an interesting scene. Okay, PXR 435 is next. Two-door Austin A30, a very interesting little car indeed. And again, the A30 you can tell because the gutter goes right across the top of the windscreen, whereas the A35 it doesn't, and it's got the chrome grille, whereas the A35 was painted with a chrome surround. Okay, nice side-on study now of a Mark 1 Austin A40, and this is probably very similar to ours in Farina grey with matching roof. Again, this would have been specified new by its first owner, specifically requesting that it had the body colour roof rather than the black roof, which was usually the case with most of these little Austins. Here's two likely looking lads and a GR 9867, 9897 rather, and an Austin 16. What a handsome looking car that is. Again, late 1940s, pre-war styling, very similar to our V8 Pilot in that respect. Thanks to Matthias for this great family photo circa 1966 of him, his family, and their Austin A30 saloon. There's a young lady with their 1964 Austin A Mark 1 Mini, of course. Now, what's the story with this one, I wonder? It's unusual to see reflective plates on a car of this age. I'm guessing this photo is probably late 60s or even possibly the nearly 1970s, but the car is very definitely a 1964. Here's a bit of a rarity, an A70 Hampshire. This was the replacement for the Austin 16. These were built from only 1948 to 1950, so it's quite a rare car now. And interesting that this one's got the spats over the rear wheels as well, because you don't often see those on surviving A70s now. And talking of A70s, we've got the Woody with a somewhat makeshift looking rear side door on it. Shame we can't see a little bit more of it, but I'm guessing the young lady was the subject for this particular photograph. But yeah, it's an interesting looking vehicle. Very, very nice indeed. It's got the commercial wheel rims on it as well, heavier duty compared to the saloons. Lovely old street scene here. Mark 1 Cortina on the left, but driving towards us is quite an early example of the Austin 1100, the ADO 16 as penned by Ali Kisigonis in the early 1960s. A very bonny example of A40 Devon here, nice straight door handles. It's got one of those marker things attached to the front wing there, so help you park without scuffing your tyres, and an extra lamp on the front as well. And yeah, a few little period modifications on this particular car. Very, very smart indeed. Lovely photo now, side-on view of an Austin A35. And like I said before, the gutters are different. On the A30 it runs across the top of the screen, but here you can see the gutter runs down the side of the windscreen pillar. There's a lady there, and a very interesting looking, 1930s perhaps, bungalow in the background. Very smart indeed. This is an interesting photo, it's worth pausing this one. Looks like an A35 has driven into the side of a Bedford lorry. There's a couple of ladies there just leaning over the back gate having a chat, presumably. And this photo, I'm presuming, was taken out the back of a coach or maybe a bus, perhaps, something like that, judging by the angle that it was taken at. But yeah, interesting scenes. And how about this? I think we're down in Brighton. We have a 65 Austin Mini Mark 1 Deluxe. Very, very nice, next to a Jaguar Mark 1. There's an 1100 behind that, and a Rover P6, circa 1965. And there's a Bedford SB coach in the background as well, for a bit of added glamour. How cool is that? Close in view now of an Austin A30 and a tiny little dog perched in front of the windscreen. I wonder what his or her name was. Still a few more of these Austins to go. Please like and subscribe, all that kind of thing, if you like these kind of uploads. Thanks to Nev now. We've got another fantastic Austin photograph here. We've got Nev's A90 in the foreground there. I think that's the car we saw earlier in the colour photos. And behind it, his brother's Austin A95 Westminster. Very, very nice indeed. What a great pair of classic Austins of the 1950s. Now we're into the late 1960s, and another example of the Austin 1100, or perhaps in this case, by this point in time, maybe it was the 1300. G-plate tells us that this car is late 68 or early 1969, and some lovely classic caravans in the background there for added excitement. Now, what do we have here? A40 Somerset, parked outside what looks like possibly a new build house. It all looks very smart, and the lack of oil drips on the road and on the driveway perhaps suggests that this was the day that the lucky owners picked up the keys to their new house. I wonder what the story is there, but yeah, very few oil drips on the road, which is unusual. Okay, thanks to Nev now, over in Australia, and this is his lovely little Austin A30. Note the larger wheels. I think they're off a Morris Minor on the back end there, just to up the gearing a little bit. So that seems like quite a sensible modification for any of these cars. If you just want to raise the gearing a bit on your A30 or A35, maybe bolt on some moggy wheels. Okay, and here we have my old A40. There's our A40 Mark 1 with the original letter advising that it was ready to be collected. It's just been prepared for the road. It was sold by Pike & Co Limited of Exeter. What a great letter that is. We've got several letters from the supplying dealer in that similar vein from mid-1960. UOG 615, what a great photo. Thanks to Trevor for this one. This was in Solihull. It's a Birmingham registered vehicle, November 1956 or thereabouts. But what a great looking van that is. And these were produced right the way until 1968 alongside the A40 Farina saloons. And that fantastic scene rounds out this look at original photographs of classic Austins of the 1940s, 1950s and 1960s. If you can help supply any photos, scans of old photos or slides similar to those shown here that I could use in future uploads, please drop me an email via the Old Classic Car website, or leave a comment below this video, because it's always great to go through all these old photographs, and lots of you out there seem to enjoy this look back as well. So thanks very much for watching. Please have a look around the rest of the channel, because there are stacks of videos like this on here now, and there'll be many more uploads along very soon. So bye for now.